traction is key. If it's not traction, it's a distraction. If you want to go to investor and if you want money, show them traction. Show them a story, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, maybe you're lucky. But if you show them traction, like if they say no, it's just not the right investor. But at some point you will find the right investor.
You're listening to the 9 to Survive podcast, where we speak to the most inspiring entrepreneurs of Australia. I'm your host, Alex Whiteside, the CEO of EasyCompanies. Running your own business can be quite daunting and scary. We're here to show you how to face those fears and help you build your dream today. We listen to the innovators, the game changers, and the thought leaders who have built their startups from the ground up. Hear what makes them tick, how they've overcome their own failures, and be inspired to take your own leap of faith and ignite your passion for business. So on today's podcast, we have Caroline from Skoutli. This is her 4th business, and the platform actually is a marketplace to connect Instagram influencers with people who have space, so can rent it out for photo shoots and things like that. She's a female founder, and she's actually raising a family at the same time of getting this business off the ground. It's a very inspirational story. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you click the subscribe button at the top and like and follow us on Facebook. So that's EasyCompanies. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy the show. All right, well, look, thanks. Welcome to the show, Caroline.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. So I've been following along the Skoutli journey on Sydney startups and, seeing how it's been progressing.
Yeah.
Let's start off just by kind of going into what Skoutli does. Like, from what I can see, it's a platform that you can book space, right, for Instagrammers or photo shoots. But maybe in your words, like, what are you doing with it?
Yeah, so we really just a platform for influencer, photographers, producer to find location. And how we're different is we help you to book it by the hour, by the room. So if you just want to shoot for a swimming pool or a kitchen, you can just book the kitchen for 2 hours for a shoot. As like usually people have to book a full Airbnb for a full night to use the
Do people do that, do they? I didn't even know.
Yeah. So I was speaking with, when I was starting to think about the idea and if it was legs, I spoke with a few people that had small businesses, and they told me that like they had to book like full hotel rooms. They just wanted a beautiful bed. Yeah. And they had to book a full hotel room for the night to just use a bed for 2 hours just to have some product on the bed. That's all. Yeah.
Oh, to get the right photo shoot, the shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
like
true.
like having this room, like they would have to book it just to make sure that like.
Well, that's what we've been looking for podcasts. I mean, we did a podcast here in a co-working space. But it's like we actually were looking around at the time I ran into Skoutli. We were looking for
here we go
space to do shoots.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's just good to just have like someone's place, and at least it can be sometimes more quiet or closer to you or closer to the client or something.
So where did the idea come from?
Yeah, so I used to be the co-founder of Cookie2. It was another marketplace. Yeah. So we used to help to rent out a cafe, restaurant at nighttime or daytime. So for example, if cafe closed at 3 p.m, we helped them to rent out their kitchens when they were closed. So catering company, food businesses could come and use their kitchen at nighttime to be able to sell online or sell at markets. Because
I think I've heard of this business. Yeah,
we did try our best during 2.5 years. And James was my co-founder, and we had a great time. We learned a lot, but finally the business never went as big as we were expecting. Yeah. So from that, I was thinking that there's something to do with photo shoots and video shoots, and clients were contacting us to use the kitchens to do shoots. But most of the time, our kitchen were not very pretty because it was like commercial kitchens. But they did contact us to do some shows, some cooking classes, some videos, and I was thinking that there may be something there. And in January, when we decided to close down Cookie2, I was thinking that let's follow this track. Let's see if there's a need. And I've been interviewing a lot of people, asking questions, and just find out that I think there is a need. And people that cannot afford, don't have a huge budget, they need a room, and they need it for a few hours, and they want it quick. I decided to try it very fast this time, learning from my lessons with the previous one that took us so much time. and so much money, but I don't have time and money anymore. So this one I'm just doing a quick MVP, and very quickly after 2 weeks we got our first booking. So it's like, oh, cool.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
No, it's come across very quickly, and it'd be good to know more about how you got that off the ground eventually. But what got you into entrepreneurship? I can see you've run a lot of different businesses.
Yeah.
So let's go back to like, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Oh, I wanted to be a vet.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Looking after animals.
Yes. Yeah. I love animals, and that's a very, like, for me, animals help me to calm down and just slow down and feel like much more connected with animals. And I was thinking that I really wanted to be with animals. And until I was probably 17 and didn't study enough, and I had to, they told me that I could, in France, I was in France, and in France, like, you have to choose between scientific, economic, or literature. And if you want to be a vet, you have to go into scientific. And I was completely in love with my first boyfriend at this time, and I was thinking that it was much more fun to be in love than study. Yeah. And completely failed my scientific class. Oh, wow. And they told me that I had to go to economic class, and so kind of that was the end of my world, because I was like, so that means I won't be a vet. And I'm so glad that I'm not a vet.
It wasn't meant to be.
No, it was not meant to be. And looking back, I want to take care of animals when they're healthy, and a vet takes care of animals when they're unhealthy. So I'm glad that I didn't go there, because I don't want to kill animals and to help them to survive. Yeah. Yeah.
And did you have a passion for business then, like coming out of university? When did the first business?
No, not at all. No, I had a passion for event management. My background was in event management. Wow. And didn't think at all having my own business. In some way, I realized years later that my dad was maybe kind of an entrepreneur, but I didn't even realize that. And it was only when every company I was thinking like, hey, we can do things better, we can do things faster, but people were not interested. And I was like, wait, but like we can spend less money, we can have a bigger impact. And people are like, no, just do your job. I was like, but like, I'm sure we can do things differently. And after a while, I was really thinking that I was the bad person. Like I was hating my job, and I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, why can't I keep a job and be happy? Like, and my first job, I don't know if I should speak about that, but most of the girls were speaking about makeup and TV show. I didn't have a TV at home, and makeup is really not my thing. So it was just, I was really not feeling like in the right place, but I was feeling that I was not good enough, and it was not about like, I was not fitting in the place.
It just, you couldn't find the job that made sense.
No, and changed jobs, went from like working in a small company to a big company to work for a council. And the council, I was like, hey, council should be like, they should be doing everything for people. Like I'm thinking like, if we organize community events, they would spend all their money to make people happier and have meaning. And I didn't find that. Like I find it like the money was kind of wasted in so many things. And at the end of a financial year, they will just spend money just because they had budget, and they will just spend it on stupid things. And I was like, wow, wait, like the previous one, they spent millions of dollars to send people overseas. On this one, they were spending money on things. And I was like, oh, I think we can do things better. And my first why I jumped out of that was my big thing was about kids and obesity. And I realized that like the obesity rate for kids in Australia is as high as the United States. And I couldn't believe that. I was like, coming from France, where we all have a canteen where it's very healthy food, it costs almost nothing, and we all sit down for an hour. When I look at like what they were doing, I was like, okay, wait, there must be something to do. The thing is, I realized that like being a single person trying to change the canteen system in Australia was just not very useful. But I did try. Like I went from like high school, I volunteer inside of a canteen in primary school, I volunteer inside of like high school, like in the cooking classes, and trying to understand what they're teaching them. And it was terrible. Like what they were teaching them was bad. So I was like, wait, like that's wrong. I even went to meet people at the government, try to speak about like, how can we change the way that canteen are run? And I was like, what about if parents are bringing a bad lunch to their kids? That means the only food that they will eat all what they grow up is only bad food. And that started from there. And the solution that I found was to create a marketplace where I found that like a lot of parents have, parents have a lot of time but low income, and some parents have like high income but no time. And I wanted to connect them. So if parents were at home and they're making some beautiful lunch boxes for 2 kids, they could make for 20 kids and sell them to
That's a good idea.
20 other parents. My issue at this time is I couldn't, if you wanted to sell food online, you had to cook from a commercial kitchen.
And you have to have the health standards and all of that.
And I couldn't find commercial kitchen that were flexible to be able to cook lunch boxes. And after a lot of other projects that I tried, at some point, my husband told me about someone was looking for a co-founder, and he was making a marketplace for commercial kitchen space. And that was James, and I joined him as a co-founder.
Oh, so that's how you transitioned into the next.
Yeah. So I tried a lot of things.
It's interesting how it's kind of taken one kind of leap to the next. It's like you just kind of are heading in the right direction.
At this
and
time,
you're just kind of like leaping to the next thing and to the next thing.
At this time, you feel like you just don't know where you're going, and you feel like you're completely lost, and you think that like, and people are like, wait, are you still doing the rooftop gardens? And you're like, no, I'm doing the, and people like, just the way, sometimes people don't realize, but the way that they say that is so fancy. Like
it can be,
it's, they don't want to be, I think, but sometimes they don't realize how tough is it, because every day you wake up and you have no idea what you're going to do, and you're trying your best. And at this time I was working part-time, and then one day I was like, no, I cannot work part-time and also try my business. So I decided to become a Uber driver. So I could drive whenever I had spare time, but at least I didn't have to go
That's a good idea for side income, right?
It was perfect. And also you have an ID and you need to test it on people. Guess what?
You can keep telling your idea.
You just have like clients at the back, and they have no choice. They have to stay in the car for like 20 minutes or half an hour. So you can just keep them in the car and ask them so many questions. And
if they would find it useful,
Yeah, and if not, you change. But they don't know you and they don't know what you're doing. So it was the best idea.
I have met Uber drivers that run their business on the side, and they're like, I'm building a startup. This is just my income stream. It makes sense.
It does.
To, if something from like zero commitment, you just turn it on, you drive, and then you turn it off. You don't have to answer to anyone else.
And the good thing is like you could even what I could do is I could go to meetings, I finish my meetings, and then turn it on. Yeah. Like, I know that like it's rainy for 3 hours. I was like, yes, it's rainy, perfect. I will just go and drive when it's rainy, because everyone wants a Uber at this time. And when it's quiet, okay, I will even sit in the street in my car and just do my emails and contact people.
While you're waiting for things.
Yeah. And
that's cool.
I will have never like have a downtime and still be driving and be happy. And I love driving, so it's like a good thing as well.
And it's meditative, right? It's getting out and like getting, like not having to worry about work for that few moments, and you can talk to people. But I think that's a good little side hustle idea that has zero commitment, and it's something you can just pick up. I mean, you need a car, that's the commitment, but...
Until I got pregnant, and I wanted to throw up all the time, so I couldn't continue driving.
Yeah. So what do you do now to supplement like income or? So
with the previous one, we've been able to make money out of it, and so we were paying ourselves. We did Moridi, the accelerator program from Telstra, so they did give us $75,000. That was very useful, even when you have no more money. But after the money was making business, the business was making money, and so that was an income. But also, I'm very lucky. I have a husband at this time who had a very good income, so that could pay for more of the bills and childcare as well, because childcare is crazy here
in Australia. Yeah,
it's quite expensive. So I've been very lucky that I could get some help from my husband. Now my husband is also an entrepreneur, so it's
well, you share the passion together then. That's,
we're both doing something that we love. Even if our business are very early for now, so we know how difficult it can be, but someday it can be even more difficult, because that means no one has a proper income. But he does work a few days a week. I'm not able to work, like I'm 100% in, and if in the next 2 months I'm not getting the numbers that I want, I'm done. Like that.
I like that approach, because I took that with with EasyCompanies when I started, I kind of gave myself, because I'd run so many businesses before and they never went anywhere, like anywhere in terms of the metrics, right? In terms of learnings, amazing. But then I got to the point where I'm like, that's it, not another business that doesn't earn revenue.
Yeah.
And then I just said, if in 2 months it's not making money, I'll move on. And within a month, we started making money. So by being able to give up, in a sense, it's not so much giving up, but being okay with it not working out somehow makes it work. I don't know. There's some magic in that, because you're not so attached to the outcome of like, it has to happen. You know it can happen, but you're not disappointed if it doesn't.
Completely.
It's like, fine, I'll just find something else.
And
it's all
so
good.
how many years have you been?
6 years now.
6 years. That's amazing. And so you were like, I only do it a few months, and
Well, I was
not.
I was about 9 months in when I made that two month call.
Okay.
And that was just because I'm like, this is like, I spent a year on a business that made zero money, and I'm sure a lot of people have. Like,
Oh yeah.
I've spent many years on businesses that never make money, and that was it. I'm like, maybe it's just never meant to be. And then it worked, because it's like I just surrendered. I'm like, I'm not gonna get so attached to the outcome. I'll just start another business. It's fine. And by detaching from the outcome, it just happened, and that's what really worked.
Oh, that's related to me. Yeah, this one I just launched it, and 2 weeks after I got my first booking, and I was like, what? Like that took us 1 year to get a booking on the other one.
Exactly.
1 year. Like this one, it took me 2 weeks, and I was like,
Yeah.
whoa! Like, how did you find out? Like, what? And yeah.
Yeah.
Same as like last week, we got a booking. My platform is so good that I didn't even know. I didn't even realize. I didn't even receive an email, and I realized a few days later that we had another booking, and I was like, oh, what? We have another booking, but they already spoke to each other, and it was all fine. I was like, wow, if booking can happen like this, they just spoke to each other, they fine.
It's gonna come through.
And it was just coming through, and I was like, wow, that's so much. I was like, with the kitchen, we had to spend so much time hand holding and everything.
But I think that's the learning. Like when you move on to the next business, you take all the learnings from the previous one. What can happen, I find, is that we get so attached to the business having to work. We stay too long in a business that wasn't meant to be. It was meant to just come, be a quick learning, and then you move on to the next thing, right? That's how it felt. But I'd be interested to know, like, what are the challenges you've been going through in terms of starting this business? What are the challenges that you've been facing, and how have you overcome them?
I think this one, I'm lucky I didn't get that many challenges. I can tell you so many challenges about the previous one because we had so many. This one, it feels like after having so many challenges on the other one, this one feels like everything is almost like rolling. So I think it will feel fake if I just say it's just happening, because this one, everything is happening, but the other one, nothing was happening. Like, and it's where, like, I think it's where I learned all my lessons.
Yes.
And now I'm just using the lessons. And I think the main lesson that I learned from the previous one as well, like, no one is perfect. And just sharing yourself as who you are, and also like telling people like what you're not good at, and asking for help where you're not good at is where people are so happy to help. And that's something that, like, growing up, I never asked for help. I was like, I will just do it.
I have
myself.
all the answers, kind of.
And I would be like, no, like, asking for help is bad. And by discovering that asking for help makes the other person feels good and they're happy to help, it really changed the way that you think about asking for help, because you kind of like giving them the favor of helping you.
That's true.
And I never realized that.
So you see asking for help as an active service in that sense?
Almost, like, because how you feel when you're even helping the grandma cross the street, you feel good. You you never feel like, oh my gosh, I lost like 5 minutes. Like, even if you have to run after, maybe there is people that feel like that, but for me it's like I still like feel happy about like helping someone. Even if someone asks me, like, sometimes I feel bad when I cannot help someone because I'm just too busy. But also that's another lesson that I had to learn. It was like, you cannot help everyone, so you also like need to make sure that like you prioritize your time. And
I think that's good, because like if you look in, say, Sydney startups in that community, if no one asked for help, it'd be dead in there. There'd be nothing going on. I mean, they'd be sharing ideas, but it's almost like by asking for help, other people then see the answers and questions, and they might have needed that guidance. Like they come to Sydney startups and they're like, oh, you're asking about a certain problem. They're like, I'm facing that problem too. So as a community, you can all kind of face challenges together. So in a way, yeah, when you put it that way, it's an active service.
Yeah, and the thing is, most of the time you learn even more from other people's question, because you didn't even think about this question, because sometimes you're just not even at this point. You don't even think about that you should think about that, because like we all learn and we never know what's 3 steps ahead. Like most of the time I have no idea what's tomorrow, but tomorrow happen and I have some idea of what I'm going to do, and someday everything change, and you just, I think being an entrepreneur, you just learn to be flexible, and nothing will happen the way that you really want it to happen.
Well, this is the first time you've asked, this is the first time you got into Muridi, right?
Yeah.
So in a way that's asking for help, but it's also to kind of fuel the journey, right? So how's it been working with an accelerator?
It was great. Like I think what I wanted to get out of it was a space to work from for a year. That was amazing. Money and support, and also a community. And I think the community was the biggest thing that I got. So the person, Matt, who helped me to build my current website now with my new company, is the guy who was sitting next to us, who is building a very successful business. And when I told him about the new business, he was like, hey, I know you're not a technical person. Do you need a hand? I can spend a weekend helping you to just like kind of hackathon style. And we just put a website together. And I was like, yeah, I definitely need some help. I didn't know where to even find it. I didn't even have budget for it, but he just did it. Like, and now we have like, we use Slack, but also like Messenger. And like, we just keeping track of like, how is everyone going? Because being an entrepreneur is like it's just like huge mountains. Like everyone is like ups and downs, but like the good thing is usually not everyone is up or down at the same time. So we're like, hey guys, like I'm killing it. How are you going? And you're like people are struggling, and you're like, okay. All the time you're like, oh, I'm struggling, but people share their wins, and you're like, wow, that's amazing. And you're like, okay, cool. Like in
the accelerator, you can kind of lift each other up, and
definitely, yeah. And even also like what I like was by just having accountability and having tasks to do and having show your numbers every week. That was useful. But I think the biggest mind opening for me was the trip to the US. Like that just blew my mind. Like it was like, you know, like the kids that arrived at Disneyland. It was like, what?
Was that's the Silicon Valley? Was it?
San Francisco and Silicon Valley. Like just going to events, meeting these people, but also realizing that like they just like you and me. Like they normal people. They just like have an amazing network of people. That's the difference. But also the way that they do business is so different that like learning from them has been huge. Like you go to a meeting, you finish the meeting, you don't have even time to catch your Uber or Lyft. And they already did the introduction to the 3 people that they say that we will do. Like here I ask people to do an intro. 3 weeks later I have to ask again, and I'm like, oh, I don't even ask again because I forgot. And it's very difficult. And I think
we have a different work culture here. Yeah.
But I think when you start picking up these learnings, like when someone asked me for an intro, I was like, great, let me do it now. I just do it on the spot, because like if you send me an email, I will forget. I have
it's gone in the future with everything else. Yeah, that's true. If it doesn't happen now, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, no. And for me, it's like really about like learning these lessons and meeting people over there. And after we got very lucky, we got accepted to the landing pad after Muridi. It's funny because we went to a trip in the US, and in the US, some companies spoke, and it's like, yes, we did Muridi. And after we did the landing pad, and I was like, what's the landing pad? And the guy from the landing pad came and explained. It was like, oh, it's a 3-month program where we are like free desk, and we help you, and we have mentorship, and you can have your desk in San Francisco. And I was like, wait, that's what I want to do. And a few months later was like application on, and the funny thing is like it's always been difficult. When I apply, I was sure I will get in. One day I received a call, and it was like, hey Caroline, just to let you know, like you're the first one on the wait list. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, I already booked my flight, I'm coming. It's like, you know, like sometimes people cancel, and I was like, I'm coming. I was like, it's like, oh,
there's not space for a no. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, and a few days later, like, no, maybe a week or two later, they contacted me and was like, very happy to tell you that we have a spot for you now. But like, I felt like with this company, everything was like that. He was like always like trying to push so hard to get in. But yeah, after the experience in San Francisco was just, we spent 3 months in San Francisco, and that was amazing. But I did ask my husband to quit his job, and I did bring my 1-year-old with me. And
you went over there?
Yeah, and we
like with the whole family.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, decided to go.
That'd be an adventure.
It was like go big or go home, and we went big, and finally we went home. My husband was supposed to find a job. I was supposed to raise money. Nothing happened. It was the most.
You learn from the way that Silicon or San Francisco does business, right? That's the main thing.
Oh yeah, and the
That's
contacts that I created were amazing.
The network.
But also, like, I never been as stressed as this in my life. I realized what was stress, like pain in my back, like feeling like someone was putting a knife in my back.
Yeah.
Every night when I was going to bed, and when you think about like, why did I move all my family there? Like, this is the most stupid thing that I ever did.
Yeah, the comfort zone. You get pushed.
Yeah, but it was a huge push. But at the same time, like, I could never been where I am right now without having learned all these lessons that I learned. But at this time, I couldn't think about that. I was just being like, I was the biggest failure, and it was the worst time of my life. And I spent so much money and everything to just go over.
Yeah, it's funny when you're in those moments, you're like, this is like what am I into? What's going on? And then later you realize, well, that was a pivotal moment. Like, that needed to happen. As crazy as it sounded, and it pushes you to your comfort. Yeah. So like, in terms of getting the business off the ground, then. What are the things that are working really well, or what lessons have you learned from previous companies that you've run? One
of the main things is ask for help. Also, not be shy about what you're doing. Like, as you've seen, like doing stupid video online, so people can just know what you're doing. Also, I think be positive and be connected to your why. Like, be connected with your inside. Like, for me, I feel like I never been as connected to like what I'm doing right now. I feel like every day I wake up and I know why I'm waking up.
The purpose of it.
And I know it's has to do with like my long-term commitment to my life, and my big thing is having an impact in life. And it's funny, like 10 years ago, I think, like, I put on my Facebook description what I want, like something about you. I was like, I want to have a positive impact on the planet. I was like, what does that mean? I don't know. Like, like now I know a bit more about it. But
so it's interesting. Is that your why in general, and then that stems into the business?
Yeah, so I do, as I said before, I do work a lot with I have a coach, and she's doing like a business coach and spiritual coach, and we work about like the long-term commitment in life, and like, why are you doing things, and what do you want, why do you do that, and what's your goal, like what do you want to achieve by doing that? And I know that this business for me is to make money, to be able to have like do the impact. Like, there's a lot of things I need to do about non-for-profit and women's and parents, and that's like where I'm committed to. And I know I tried to do a lot of projects even before when I told you about non-for-profit, and realized that like, if you try to do a non-for-profit, you need to find grants, you need to get commitment from people, sponsors, and every year they may change. The person in charge may change, the decision, the budgets may change, and you never know what you're going to do. So after working a lot on it and speaking with a lot of people, I realized that if you really want to do something, just do it yourself. Like, it's really about like, and for me, it's really about like making an impact, having the money that I want to have. And after that, like, I think non-for-profit, there's too many non-for-profit and they don't work together. And my big thing is about like having a structure that
connecting them.
I think there is like a lot of things to do, and also connecting normal people with non-for-profit, but not for money, but for skills. So for example, you are amazing at doing these skills. Like, if you're good at accounting, and a non-for-profit in Africa needs an accountant, you can maybe spend 1 hour a week with
giving them a lot more than
giving them like $20 a month.
That sounds like an interesting startup when it happens.
I think there's a lot of things to do, and I think also parenting is challenging, and so many people struggle about that. So creating platform that will help this. So that's my long-term goals, and I'm sure that it will be more, it may change and it may be completely different, but I know that I want to have an impact, and I would know to do this impact I need to, one, continue growing every day, because it's not who I am right now will make the company successful. And I think people don't realize that working on yourself is so important, but also like finding people that are better than you and getting them to come into your company and tell them like what's your crazy ideas and what's your vision, and see, like, I've been invited to speak at events, and just out of sharing my experience, people came to me and say, hey, I want to work with you. Like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I put my team together by not putting...
Just by people showing up?
Yeah.
How do you think, because that's a very interesting statement, like where do you think people came from? Like what got people to just show up and say, hey, I want to work for you? And
I don't know. I think it's... I think because I'm always trying to be true to myself. And if I like it, great. If I don't like it, bad luck. Like, it's who I am. Like, I'm not perfect. I'm far from perfect. But I know what I want. And I know that, like, what's very important for me, it's people that care about what they're doing and care about themselves and care about others. If they don't care about themselves or others, like, I'm not interested to speak with them. Like, they can do something that they want. But
that's not the team you want.
No, I want people that, like, come to work, and if there is a client at 10 p.m. that has an issue, and you see that and you can decide to do something, like, I think, like, it's not working at 10 p.m. It's about, like, someone is in trouble, maybe I can help. Like, I definitely want people to find also work-life balance. I don't think like working at 10 p.m. every night is worth it. But for me, I feel like I want to be flexible. If I want to spend 2 hours with my daughter before putting her at daycare and having like a beautiful morning and arriving at the office at 10:30, I don't care. Like, it's... because I may stay on that light.
That's the flexibility, yeah. And that's what entrepreneurship gives us, right? It gives us that flexibility to create the lifestyle. Well, it becomes a lifestyle business, really. You get that flexibility.
The issue with that is like you cannot work 24 hours, 7 days a week, and with the
sometimes we think we can.
Like,
as entrepreneurs, it's like, you know, I'm gonna try this 20-hour 20-hour weeks and see what happens, and then you realize, no, burnout again, damn it, I've been tricked by the mind, you know.
And how are you finding it? Like, do you find, like, for you, is it better to have like fixed hours, or do you have flexible hours? Or
I think for me, just structure is what I perform best in. Like the 9 to 5, that works best. But what I try to do is travel like every 2 months or something. I try to get away and take a week off. And
where do you travel?
Bali, like Singapore, Asia, anywhere. I mean, I'm tempted to go to Silicon Valley now and see what's going on over there.
I have some intros.
Yeah.
I can do it now.
There you go. And I think what I get from that is just seeing the world differently. But it's also like when I built the business, I built it because I want to, and it goes back to the why. I want to have that flexibility to run a life. I don't want to be so locked into this is it, and that's what it'll always be, will be. I think we can be flexible with the way, especially when you're running a business, but you need to remember that there's a team that, you know.
And so what's your why?
My why is to inspire people and, you know, lift them up. So for us, it's like by running EasyCompanies, it used to be around money and travel, and now it's moved into, I want to help people start their business. Like, I want to help them be entrepreneurs and be the leaders that they can be by kind of not only sharing my story, but other people's stories and other people's content and, you know, their knowledge, kind of share that through. And I think that will change the world in that sense. So
definitely,
because it all starts with a founder. At the end of the day, you can look at any business and be like, the business is broken. It's not the business that's broken, it's the founder at the end of the day. Anyone can do anything that they want in the world. The limiting like beliefs are what kind of holds you back in that sense. So that's what I've seen.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, unless it's time to move on, then that's why the business isn't working. But it's never really the business. That's what I noticed. So
yeah, and I think it's tricky as well when the founder leave after like some time. Sometimes the founder leave and everything changes. And
a co-founder or something. Yeah. Or it moves on. That's the original vision. So then it disappears. That's good. So how did you?
But just to come back to your point, I do think that like we definitely need more founders and even more female founders.
Yeah.
Like for me, like I find it very difficult to don't see enough female founder at the top, because I think it's very when you want to feel when you're down, you just want to look up and see people that are doing it. So you're like, yeah, I want to be like this one. But for female, it's so difficult to see other female out there, and you're like, And when you look at the stat, it's terrible. Like, I don't even want to say the stat, but like, it's like how many female CEO, how many female founder have raised capital, like how many female founder have been to more than Series A. Like, the numbers are shocking. And I think that like, but when you look at like the female founders that are doing it, they get so much better results. It's like, what's happening? Why are we getting better results? But there's not enough of them. And I do think that like it's great what you're doing. Even more like if we can get even more female founder to come.
So how do you think we change that? What's your vision there?
I think it's just by telling them that's possible, and also like even having more like mixed team. Like for me, I find that like I think like I couldn't be where I am right now without my co-founder before. Like he really helped me to lift my game, and that was like James was like 5 years younger than me, but I felt like he was helping me to be better who I am, because I was not standing for myself. I was not confident, and he helped me to be there. And I think it's like more mentoring and more helping people, but also like I think male founders should be thinking about getting a female co-founder, and that will help them as well, because they see the world one way, we see the world very differently most of the time. But I think it's just a win-win, and by also considering them as equal, it's really going to be a big change. And I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I definitely want her to be as equal as anyone else. But the numbers, like so many initiatives are happening, but I feel like they just say that like the results are not getting better. So people don't like the quota and everything about like how many politician female should be there, how many this. But I do think that helps, because by putting them there at the beginning, people are against it. They're like, oh, we just choose them just because they are female, and at the beginning it's bad, but after when they see like the difference after, it just seems normal. But at the beginning something has to happen to make sure that it's there, because if we just say like, oh, it's getting better, great, look at the numbers, it's not. So I can see that like in other countries they are doing more and more initiatives, and even in Australia some of the initiatives are great. And just pushing that, and also like I think we do too many news about the bad news. I think we need more like TV channels about the good news. Like
that's why I don't even watch TV. It's just too negative. Like the best news is sitting on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or something.
Depending, because sometimes it's like fake word as well.
Yeah, the fake news, but it's
fake
very
news or fake word. Like sometimes like you look on Instagram and like, do they really like? And I'm the worst, because I'm going to provide this space for people to pretend that they're having an amazing life. Sometimes they don't, but if it's what they want to do, that's fine. But at the same time, like I think we should share more like real news and good news, because
well, I think it's that without going too far into that, it's like the media builds on fear right now, but that's really a reflection of where the world sits right now. Most people are tipped into fear, and that's what sells. They're going to sell the majority. If the whole world was in a state of happiness and positivity and love, that's what the news would be spreading, because that's what sells. But right now the majority of people are buying fear, and that's where it is. So to tip it really starts within, but that's a whole topic for my other podcast, which
Good.
I want to get off the ground one day.
Will you just do happy news?
Happy news, and like I think it's
needed.
It is. I think it's spreading positivity, and I think that's where, when I say like Instagram and Facebook, I think you can find a lot of positivity there, and I'm sure you can through news outlets, but I find it like I follow specific people, and that's where I get my inspiration from, and I'm careful with who I follow, because then I know I'm only receiving the right the right thing. But that's really where it sits, and I think that's what I'm seeing, is that the people out there are sharing. They're becoming the media of the world. It's not just a few key entities. But I think that's what's going to, getting back to the women entrepreneurship, because that's something that, I follow as well. And I'm, looking at what's happening in that space, and I see, a lot of events kicking up around that. So how have you found going to those events? And
I don't want to be too bad, but I was very, very upset last year. I went to an event, it was about female, and in venture capital, and I get very frustrated about that because it was the week about the Women's Day. What's the name? International Women's Day. And I look at all this thing about women, and I'm very upset because most of the time, every event and every accelerator program, everything that do it just for female only, the terms are not as good as for male only. So that means at the end of it that you're trying to do something for female and you don't providing the same terms and you're making them worse. Are you really trying to make the woman feel as good as the men?
Yeah, that's not equality.
And I went to this event. It was backed by VC, and I remember it was like cheap alcohol on a plastic glass, not even food on the side. I don't even think it was allowed to just even provide alcohol with that. And it was just for female, and it was like backed by VC. And I know that they're trying to do something, but if you try, just do it. Like, I felt that it was very bad. That and it's funny because I told Julie, the person in charge at Moridi, and she was like, "Do you want to write an article?" And I was like, "Probably don't want to, because you also don't want to just be like the black sheep at the middle and be like, that's not good, that's not good." But at the same time, like, I was like, but wait, like, why are we doing accelerator programs and everything where, for example, a program for men will be free, a program for women, they charge you $10,000. I'm like, because what, women really need it? And when they say like, we need to do more mentoring for women, why? Because are they not as good? Like, I think it's all about like how we speak about it and how we consider it, and stop doing things for women and just to find a selling point, but not do as good as men. Because I think it's, for me, I find it very offensive and very bad, even if it's helping women. If you really want to help women, just do the same terms.
I think that's it. Equality is the key in that. Like, even when we're recruiting at EasyCompanies, I'm not looking at gender. We're just looking at who are you and how do you present yourself as a person. That's it. It's not that person's a female. Oh no, that's not as important to us. Everyone is just equal. Like, I think that's when you see the world through that lens, it's just that people are people, then the problem starts to disappear. And it's like, you know,
and I think as the generation goes, I think it's getting better, I hope. But yeah, sometimes I deal like with older gentlemen and I feel like, you know, like the way that they just speak to you, and I'm like, I'm not 5 years old. Like, I know what I'm doing. But they will come and they will like, they will tell me something or something. And I'm like, kind of like, if I am like the interns of a company or something, and I'm like, wait. And I realized that like, I really need to stand for myself. Like, hey, I'm the CEO of a company. I know what I'm doing. Like, I built this business up to there. And like, but sometimes also people don't realize. And I think sometimes it can be very offending, but it's also about like women really standing for themselves and realize that like, you have everything that you need right now. You don't need to do this and that to just be. I think everyone needs to do more self-awareness and work on themselves, but that doesn't mean that women need to do more to be as good.
I think we all need to work on the self-awareness, but that's kind of why we're here. That's the journey. So how's it, like, what's the challenges been in terms of having a family and running a business? Because I feel like a lot of our audience might relate to that, or just on a side note, they like feel that might be a limitation to why they can't start a business, because I have a family and commitments and everything. But you've proven that it's possible. So
it's possible. It's definitely, I would say, challenging, but I think everything is challenging in life. What I realized as well, I think since I gave birth, was my priorities. I used to be never good at priorities. My brain changed. Like, it was like, okay, I have 10 hours in my day. I have like 3 for breastfeeding, 3 for this. I have 4 that I can do something, what I will do in my 4 hours. And really about like thinking about your day, like it's really about like changing the way that you see your day. And a big thing for me was asking for help, because you know, I'm French, you can hear that. And that means like, I don't have family here and I have friends here, but also like for the first 6 months, my little one stayed with me most of the time. My husband took some time off from work, and my mom came to help me for a month. I was very lucky for that. But that means like at some point I had to go to meetings, and I had Sophia with me all day, and I was like, I'm very good on Facebook. I love Facebook, and Facebook has been a saver for me. Like I would be like, hey, I need a babysitter from 10 to 11 on Martin Place Thursday, and by the night I will have people be like, yeah, can do that, and they will just be like going around Martin Place for an hour or something. But asking for help and just finding help, like sometimes it maybe not be your friend because you don't have that many friends here, or because, but like you can find there's new co-working space where you can bring your baby, or even like at this time I was at the Hatchery Plus in a UTS accelerator, and they accepted that I could bring Sophia in the building, and she was sleeping on my desk, like, and every time she was crying, I will just go outside, or like I will feed her at the desk. I will change her. They had like a changing table there, and I will go for a walk. And it was perfect because I needed to stop, take a break. I would put her down. I knew that she was going to sleep for an hour, 2, maybe 3, if I'm lucky. And I knew that like that was my time. And
so it breaks up more time. Like you have less time, but somehow you still have the same amount of time because you're working more efficiently. And I think.
And when she's tiny, she wakes up during the night, and sometimes I will like breastfeed, and by the time I was like cleaning everything, I would be like looking at my email, responding to email, and people will receive like email at 2 a.m. or something. But it would be just like, you know, like with 2 seconds.
It gives you that extra window of time.
Yeah. And people like, they will, you don't really look at what time people send you your email. Sometimes you do and you laugh. But I think it's possible. And it's really also about speaking to your husband, your partner, your whoever can help you, and tell them that like you need help and what time you need help and what are you going to do and how, and also like even more when like you breastfeeding, like it's a pain. People don't realize, and we never speak about that, but I think it's really important that people know that like when you're breastfeeding, you need a space with a quiet room, because you need to have your machine and extract milk, and like it's...
Well, they have that here at in the co-working space here. They have spaces for that now, I've noticed.
But sometimes I don't think about like putting a lock on it. So you like with your special bra taking milk out, and there's no lock on it. Great, don't put a lock. Like I have everything out, and after like you have like all these parts, and you need to clean them, and they don't put they don't put a hand wash, or they don't put a fridge, but the milk that you have, you need to put it in the fridge. Like there's so much logistic that you have to think of.
I think I can see that it's coming though. Like it's getting included in spaces, and I think, you know, especially the bigger co-working spaces are open to more inclusivity.
And I think people should just ask for it as well.
And I think it's at work that probably is the challenges in startups, because startups run on limited budgets and they have limited space. So then it's like, to bring that in, it's possible. You just need to speak up and say, I need this, and how can we compromise and stuff like that.
But I think also by just telling people that that's what you need a quiet, like you need a little space where you have your own time for 20 minutes with a fridge not too far, or at least a fridge available somewhere in the building, and somewhere where you can wash the things. I think if males know, they can also bring the conversation up, or think about it, because for a female, you already thinking about nappy change, this, that, like you probably didn't sleep that much, you probably have to work, and if you have to think about also asking someone else that you need a space, like I think if people know that you need it, they may be like, oh, you're pregnant, so do you think when you're coming back to work, like do you think you will need something, like even just asking the question, like do you think you need something special, or do you think, because sometimes it's possible, it's just also by everyone knowing that what you need, and maybe
it's expressing it. So I think what would be good to know as well is like how you find a routine, a daily routine. Like what are you finding working well in terms of holding work-life balance? Like a few people on the show talk about yoga, meditation. What works for you? Yes,
I do think that yoga is great, but also what I realized for me is I can't have a set plan. It's some days I can wake up early, like around 6 a.m. I never wake up with a clock, so with an alarm clock. I just wake up by myself, and if I feel good and if I slept enough, I will wake up early enough to before my husband and my daughter, and we'll be able to do some meditation, some yoga. But what I think what's really important is I try to not read, but listen to all this book. I don't know if you heard about Blinkist.
Yeah, Blinkist. Yeah,
I love it. Like
like
it's just,
speed reading books, or
Yeah, it's
it
only
takes the book into 15 minutes, is it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the best thing ever for me. Like, but I was trying to listen to all this and trying to find like what's the best way. And people tell you like, oh, you should sleep this many hours, you should work at this time, you should. But I think the best thing that you could do is making sure that you understand yourself and what's working for you. Because there's too many people that tell you what to do. But really what you can do is understanding yourself better and making sure that you know at what time you should sleep, at what time you should wake up, at what time you should work. Like I'm very ineffective usually on the morning, and I'm very, very effective probably from like 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. is probably like where I'm very good. But I cannot just be every day from 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. If not, it won't work for my family. So what I found is by having some days in the week where I wake up early, do my meditation, and go to work early. But some of the other days I tell my husband like, hey, tonight is your night. Like I'm just going to stay at the office until like late. And last week I came back home at 1 a.m. Last night I came back home, it was like 8:30, and my husband was like, oh, you home early? And I was like, early? I was like, I was almost like feeling like I was home too early. And I was like, oh. But I think it's like finding what's working for you. And for me, it's like trying to get as many walk in the day as possible. Like, for example, today it was like 22 minutes to come by bus or 22 minutes walking. And it was like beautiful and sunny. I was like, let's just go for a walk, like to come here. Like trying to find like where you can have some time for yourself, because the more you have on, the more time per you have. And for me, the big thing that's working is I put everything in my calendar, and I have a shared calendar with my husband, so I know when he has events. He know when I have events. We know when we have events together, and at least we can both be in control of our calendars when we set up something. But also, I will be like, okay, that's my late night.
So you lock off your time to work and stuff like that. Yeah.
And sometimes it's just like a day in advance. Sometimes it's a week in advance. Like we're trying to do that on Sunday night. Most of the time, don't do it very well. But like, but also not being like a slave of like having to wake up every morning at 5 to do yoga. If you wake up at 5 and you feel crap, like I don't think it's a very good idea.
No,
there's
no should, right? But how do you keep the headspace? Headspace is an interesting word, but how do you keep mindful or balanced? Are you using meditation?
I do use.
You said you have a coach as well, right? So.
Yeah, I do use meditation, and I do also with my coach. I record a session, and I do listen to the session again.
Listen to them back,
and that's also very helping me. I also really like. My coach told me that I'm very impacted by the planets and everything, and the moon and things like this. I have no idea about that. And she told me that there's a lady called Elizabeth Peru, and she explained about like, for example, there's just been the eclipse and the full moon, and she explained what's happening. And for me, like I listen to that every morning, and even the day before I listen to what's happening, what happened the day before. And she charged like $80 for a year of daily forecast.
It's good to know what's going on.
Yeah, but for me, like I can feel like not I think everyone is impacted by the moon, or I think no one realize until I realize. But for me, I'm really impacted. So for example, like today she was like, oh, the energy is a new energy, it's a new beginning. And she said like July is like the new beginning of the year. And many people feel like, you know, like when you have like, you think about like what are you going to plan in January for the year, and they said right now July is like this, and it's really about planning kind of like another next part of the year,
the next step.
And for me it's like trying to find what suits you. Also, I love Blinkist. Every time I have 15 minutes in the bus, like I do have like a lot of public transport, I listen to a lot of Blinkist and try to also like get surprised by what's come next. Like sometimes it can be like a book about self-development, and after it's like a book about having better relationship with your partner, and you're like, whoa, wow, okay, that's very different. But and I think don't put too much pressure, and listening to your body is a big thing for me, and taking just some time off, like sometimes just like putting your phone in a bag, sitting outside and just having
time off,
just time to just not having an agenda is big for me.
So how do you define success?
What about you? About like the question before,
how do I find
tips?
Balance? So what works for me is meditation. Like half an hour a day. So I said for me it's structure. So I have a routine. So I wake up, I meditate for half an hour. I don't set an alarm. I just know that I'm going to wake up at the right time, whatever that is. I've done the whole 5 a.m. thing, and I feel like it's forcing things, like, and that's just my own personal experience. So yeah, I wake up whenever, I meditate for half an hour, and then I do Wim Hof, like cold shower techniques and stuff like that. So
what's that? Tell me.
So I just jump in a cold shower.
Yeah.
It's instead of having
fully
a hot
cold.
shower. Yeah, fully cold.
Whoa.
Yeah, and that for me is overcoming the first challenge of the day.
Okay.
And then it sets up the tone for the day. Like I can step into something that every day my brain tells me isn't possible, and it is.
Oh,
so,
wow, that's very interesting.
and then I know that mind is just going to trick me again today. So it's like, you said I couldn't get into the cold shower, but this is the same thing. Of course I can do this. So that's why I kind of take a cold shower every day. And there's so many effects you can read up on it, on having a cold shower, just around immune system and depression, like all those kind of things. It really helps. So I'll do that, and then that's it, like off to work. And that's my routine. I do journal every now and then, but not as often as I know other people will, just when I have ideas. And I think that's it. But really it's the mindset for me that works. So it's positive thinking, but it's not like some positive thinking is just like all the affirmations, and they're good, like don't get me wrong, but it's staying mindful and present to whatever's coming up and not resisting it. That really helps. And knowing that at any given time, like you are on the right path. It's not, you're not like doing the wrong thing or anything. It's all just part of the journey. With those mindsets, there's less suffering in life for me now, and things are much simpler, and things just show up. So that's how I keep balance throughout the day.
Cool. I have a few things to add that I forgot.
Yeah.
I do a few more things. When I try to escape at least one day during the week or weekend, I also take always at least a half day with my daughter during weekdays. And I try to go into, if I can, bush or
nature.
Forest or nature. Yeah. It's a big thing for me. Like, I have Manly Dam not far from me, so I try to just walk to Manly Dam at least once during the week. And I stay there, play with my daughter for a few hours, and just go back. And if I can have a little picnic, like, it's great.
It's just taking time off. Yeah.
It's just like, it's free. Like, that's a good thing about it. Like, you can play with the ducks, have a swim, just stand in the forest. That's a good thing as well. Every night, my husband get upset, but every night we're trying to do like 3 things that you're grateful for today. And he has to do it and I have to do it. And after we do one thing about what we're grateful for from each other. And sometimes you don't really have something, even if it's like, thanks for dropping off Sophia this morning. Thanks for...
Well, you find it. It's...
doing dinner. But it was like at the beginning it was very weird to do it, but now every night I know that I have to do it, and it makes you such a better mood to sleep, because you have to think about like what you're grateful of today. And some days I get upset or my husband gets upset, and I'm like, we can just be grateful of being alive, like because someday it's really the worst day, nothing happened right, like you're just upset, you run out of money, everything, but you're like, hey, we're still alive, we're still together. And having a relationship is so difficult. There's so many ups and downs. But I think by also like working together and trying to think like, what are you grateful for? Is for me is a big thing. I think I had one more thing I wanted to add, but I forgot. Yeah,
so I was going to say before. So how do you define? I think this is the last question. How do you define success in terms of the business? Like, what does success mean to you?
I think there's 2 different things. What's success for me in my life and what's success for the business. So what I learned in San Francisco is like, traction is key. If it's not traction, it's a distraction. And that's something that I learn now. And if you want to go to investor and if you want money, show them traction. Show them a story, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, maybe you're lucky. But if you show them traction, and traction that's going fast and up, like if they say no, it's just not the right investor. But at some point you will find the right investor. What's success for me is doing something that I love, so doing it with my family and having an impact. And if I can just do that and every day feel like I'm getting closer, I will never get perfect, but getting closer to what I want and impacting as many people as I can, and also empowering others. Like right now, my team members, like two of them are like 24, but I can see so much potential in them. I'm like, they're just amazing. Like at 24, I wish I could be like them. Like, and it's really about like also giving back. And the more I can feel like I can give back, the more I feel like useful. And I think also being a good mom is a very, when you see your little one growing up, I think it's huge.
Yes, it's about giving back for you. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
For me, it's success is just being happy in every moment. That's the main thing. I think it's less about the long-term goals and stuff like that. For me, it's like if I wake up and I can come to, I come to work and I'm in a happy place and a happy vibration and everything's going well, then I've made it again. It's not something in the future and that's it. So if I'm not in that mode, then I'm kind of like, I'm off track or something like that. But then it's acceptance. So yeah, that's it for me.
Cool.
But well, that wraps up this show's podcast. So it's been great to have you on, and I'm looking forward to following the journey and very inspirational story. So I'm sure others can probably relate to that. Yeah.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
We're looking for, of course, you're always selling as a founder. We're looking for more places. So everyone looking at that, maybe they can just list list their kitchen, their living room. The good thing about us is you can choose whenever you want to rent it, and even if you're not the owner, you're still allowed to list your place during daytime, because you're not subleasing, you just rent it, you just offering your place during daytime, so it's not in your condition. We're looking for more places right now in Australia, and after from December we'll go overseas and looking for more places overseas. And also if people know agencies, producers, like telling them that like we exist and they can find location very quickly.
So it's skoutli.com.au?
Yeah, Skoutli is SKOUTLI.com. And I think also the trend that I'm thinking that will be very different is where I think that micro-influencer will have a big impact. And I think micro-influencer that are traveling to new countries will be able to use us to find the perfect shoot for a few hours. And that's where I'm thinking that's going. And if you're also a micro-influencer and you start needing new places, we're doing Australia now and we go overseas from December. That's good. Well, it's been great to have you on the show. Cool, thank you. Also, if you haven't already, check out our YouTube channel. It's available under the EasyCompanies account, and there'll be a 9 to Survive playlist. So I hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next time.